Actually 5 stars. 5 stars. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and Madam Evelyn Bright, I like the name. Yeah, and then Ousa. This gentleman is in charge of 72,000 CBOs in the country. And how they managed to do this it remains a mystery. And CMA, it's amazing that you're doing this for the first time. We congratulate you. And I also want to congratulate my fellow awardees in the various categories. And I'm sure that I would have loved to join them at the Serena, but there was a bit of a mix-up. We were ready to go to Radisson Blue, then it was changed to Serena. Be that as it may, we have a country to think about, to love, to uphold the principles that hold us together, basically the rule of law. And we have a region that is in dire need of mediation. And even before we go to the region, the country itself. I happen to be a certified mediator myself, and I went through a mediation course. And I'm sure that may not have been captured. But people remember that when we were given some jobs to do by 2 presidents, President Daniel Arap Moi that time as a young foreign minister. And if you allow me to mention Evelyn, you just mentioned to me that your grandmother is a famous Elizabeth Bagaya who served as foreign minister in Uganda. And now she's doing regional work, literally. Can somebody hold this for me? Now that I've taken possession. So you see, you have that DNA of working for regional well-being, the integration of East Africans. I gather from Evelyn that the next stop will be Dar es Salaam in February. And I will want to bring on board people like my friend Jakaya Kikwete and others. And I remember that Kenyans and East Africans will have forgotten that I was actually given the responsibility by Bayao, believe it or not, by 3 presidents, President Yoweri Museveni, President Moi, and President Ali Hassan Mwinyi, to jumpstart the East African on abductions and extrajudicial killings. For Kenyans who may not understand that legal terminology, extrajudicial killings simply means that you take the lives of Kenyans contrary to the law. And there's criminal law which establishes how somebody can be hanged. And I remember one time I was responsible for the Ministry of Home Affairs under Mzee Kibaki, and I was brought a list by the Director General of Kenya Prisons, and the list had over 3,000 people on the death row. The death row ni wale wanangojea tu kunyongwa. You hang by the rope, the judge will say, hang by the rope until you are dead. Pronounced dead. Anybody who takes life other than in accordance with the law is actually committing a crime themselves. But I can tell you, Mzee Kibaki and I looked at that list, and we said, nobody has a right to take anybody else's life. Even Mzee Kibaki, who could have signed, decided to commute those sentences to life in prison. What we need to do, our legislators, is you now have to define what is the meaning of life in prison. What is the meaning of life imprisonment? I think is one issue which is outstanding. In Rwanda, they do not have capital punishment under the constitution. By the way, the example of Rwanda is also worth following, CMA, because they have the Gacaca courts, where to decongest the prisons, as your colleague has just said, you get people sitting, wazee, they get a chacha court, they dispense quick justice. Those who have to forgive each other, forgive, they embrace, they cry together, and the society gets healed. Here in Kenya, it is punishment after punishment, breaking people's nerves and hearts. Abductions continue even as we speak, because I look at those Gen Zs who are sending what, wherever, and here we are referring to data protection, which is also getting violated, and they follow young people, they abduct them, they kill them. You will not go unpunished. And that does not mean I'm not a peacemaker. We are told here and clearly, you cannot have peace without justice. Yeah, and you cannot also have development, as the late Desmond Tutu said, without no development without peace as well. So these things are not contradictions. The times we live in are perilous times, and Kenyans are feeling it. We want to tell Kenyans, you are not alone. Broad-based, we heard over the weekend that kuna wengine wana peremende, so I called it bread-based, bread and peremende-based government. But that's okay, it's our country. That is not name-calling. You can be sure that you will never get from this awardee stone throwing. We will throw stones from our heads. Maybe sometimes we can do so with sharp criticism, but we will not take a panga and hurt a Kenyan. We will not get a stone and hit a fellow Kenyan. That is the message to the leaders. So let us be very sharp about this. Once again, thank you. Thank you, my brothers here, and young Gen Z here, Kamau. According to me, broke a world record here, Kenya. He drove from here to Luanda and drove back on Saturday. Young man driving himself. They have energy also, and they talk like Hanifa. They don't follow any protocol. They just tell you as it is. So may God bless our country. I think it was Ruto himself who said there will be compensation. Kenyans are waiting. Or is it one of those usual? One of those usual. We'll keep on. And by the way, I don't think it's a matter sometimes of just being soft about it. This is deep. Kenyans are hurting. Their parents are waiting. There's still parents asking, where are our children? And you hear Inspector General Police saying, these are not under police. Who else carries pingu? Kama yule jamaa amezikwa kule Siaya juzi. Found abducted or something na pingu. Nani anabeba pingu? Yeah. We have evidence of young people who were arrested and dumped in the rivers. Some in I think Murang'a, Kware. The Kware issue, by the way. And here I want to make a very clear statement. If there is government still in place, can you go and clear Kware? Yani isafishe majeshi yende pale isafishe hapo na hapo mahali patengenezwe. So it's not enough to go and tell the world in Baku. Baku is the capital of Azerbaijan. Kwamba hey, we are cleaning the Nairobi River. Start with the quarry. And maybe there are still more bodies there in Kware. So we must stop this. I was going to use a term which is not mediation free. Right? People must be free to associate without, being insensitive. The time for hard talk is coming. East Africans made a terrible mistake when the East African community collapsed in 1977. Again, unknown to Kenyans and East Africans, Europe borrowed heavily a kind of example. And they went on to build today, you talk about European Union. First of all, it was a commission, the Union. And on our part, we decided because of lack of political will that time, remember President Milton Obote that time, Mwalimu Nyerere, Mzee Kenyatta, you recall, even today, sometimes Tanzanians wonder how it happened, because we took hold of Kenya Airways, East African Airways and things, and even the division of assets was a big issue. But now, the younger generation is coming of age, the Gen Zs, because now I think our responsibility as senior leaders is to prepare this country and hand it over properly to the next generation. So we applaud our young leaders, the Gen Zs, who decided, hey, you will not take our country from us and escape. We will be heard. Therefore, Anifa, who was one of the recipients, is she on the way? Yeah, if she's here, we want to celebrate Anifa. She told the police to their face. And even as we speak, those issues have not been sorted. We heard from this administration of William Ruto that they were going to compensate the youths who lost their lives. The families are still waiting. No compensation, no talk even, no indication whatsoever that you are willing to talk to these parents. Well, I think it is important. Justice demands that we don't make promises that we can't keep or we don't intend to keep. They just wanted an escape route, which they got. Some of us afforded them an escape route, and then they got all of it. And in fact, some of us who belong to the Azimio family are benefiting from the blood and the sweat of the many Kenyans who came to the streets, and the whole world stood still and took notice of the Gen Z revolt and movement. In my view, that revolution continues. Until these things are sorted out and Kenya is made to live peaceably with each other. Remember, I think it's in the book of Ephesians where the Bible tells us, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Leaders, we will be there looking for votes and calling each other names. But remember, we have a country. We are all, at the end of the day, Kenyans, East Africans, and members of the world community. Therefore, the example of the Gen Z and the millennials, by the way, they are the ones who came out in Botswana hardly 2 weeks ago. The Gen Zs and the millennials came out. So, I think it's within the mediation spirit to ask this administration to give IDs to these young Kenyans, because they want to come and teach some people a lesson of their lives. Like they did in Botswana, where the ruling party that time, the president who did one term, and if you look at what happened in Botswana, you can almost see exactly what has happened in Kenya. The president who was driven out by the Gen Zs and the millennials was torturing his predecessor, Ian Khan, I think that's the name. Yeah. And in fact, that president escaped. Former president went to South Africa on exile. And then you preach hatred. Again, remember the biblical principle. You kill by the sword, you die by the sword. So there's so much. When God gives us bread, let us live peaceably with each other. Don't punish your opponents. You know, now, there are business people in this country who cannot dare to be identified with the opposition because they know the KRA people will be on their case tomorrow. Yani watu wanaishi kwa woga. So we must say no to fear. In a democracy, you cannot have that principle of fear and call yourself a democratic state. Therefore, the Gen Z said, whether we die, they were almost like Paul, who wrote and said, for me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. They said to die is gain. So we have to redeem this land. So that blood cannot have been shed in vain. in 2023 at these grounds after the demonstrations. The churches in Nairobi could not even allow us to hold some requiem mass for the almost 70 young people who died. So we had to put a tent here. You may remember media colleagues that we were putting wreaths here. Former President Uhuru was here, Raila was here, I was here, and other leaders. We couldn't even be allowed to bury those young people decently. And we ferried them to Siaya, to Makueni. We ferried them. And then a repeat of 2024, this time led by the Gen Zs. So there's time now, there's need for us to talk, mediation, and ability to live together as Kenyans. Though we will disagree, as indeed we ought to in a democracy, but let us remember that what is it that is the nexus holding us together? Our Constitution 2010, bequeathed to us by President Kibaki. At least hold that. Let's hold to that constitutionalism, that sense of constitutionalism and the rule of law. And when we say tumeumizana, people should be to say sorry literally and do something about it. We will on Friday here be addressing a very critical issue because our research team is on it. So media, don't be tired. We want to talk about this vaccination of 22 million cows. Hey, mutashangaa kabisa the reason behind it. People using climate change debate say our cows produce methane gas, which is okay, our cows, right? And because of the clever Kenyans actually do biogas, they cook with it. Now they want to vaccinate our cows in order to stop producing. Yeah, can you imagine? Because you see, you offend the ozone layer, and to use Kenya as a guinea pig. So after this vaccination of 22 million cattle, we will be eating meat that has been genetically modified. It's not enough that they have lifted the orders on GMO, and we have gone to the appeal court. GMO imekubalika. We need therefore this mediation spirit in us so we know, tell each other the truth. So this is really, come to think of it, this is dangerous stuff. But we'll be talking about it on Friday. When Jeremiah Kioni kept on talking about this over the weekend, I was wondering, what is Kioni talking about? Until the reality has hit me. So we will say a polite and firm no to some of these machinations. And we'll ask our people. By saying no, we are not saying you don't belong to Kenya or you want to immigrate. No, this is the only land. This is our land. Yeah. In the book of Isaiah, Kenyans have tried to identify where Kenya is. The land beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. So this land is important. Kwa hivyo mimi nawashukuru sana. I don't know whether it will be in order for me to ask one or two of my colleagues.
I can tell you that as our team leader, we are very, very proud of him and what he has done for this country. When you're talking about peace, this country has known instability before. And during some of our darkest days, particularly in 2007, 2008, that is when he came out and stood by President Mwai Kibaki, stabilized this country. So the peace we celebrated, then after that, he had something to do with it, and this country remembers him for that. and not just in this country, beyond our borders, in the Sudan, South Sudan, the role he has played in stabilizing the region, in bringing peace in the region. You couldn't have found a better person for this award, and we want to thank you for that, but also to congratulate His Excellency for his outstanding role as a mediator, as a peacemaker, and as a leader who has always fought to bring the country together for all Kenyans to live in peace and harmony. So we are very proud today to celebrate this award. And the Bible says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Your Excellency, congratulations, and we're very proud of you. But also to say what Bishop Desmond Tutu once said, that without justice there can be no peace. Without peace there can be no development. I want to share the sentiments of His Excellency that indeed, even as we move forward, we must ensure that we do justice to ensure that our country is peaceful. What happened last year and this year in terms of the demonstrations against the Finance Bill 2023 and the Finance Bill 2024, and the Gen Zs who were killed, their families are still crying out for justice. Perhaps today we might see the country is calm and think that our country is peaceful. Indeed, it might just be the calm before the storm, especially with the plans of this broad-based government to bring back the 2024 Finance Bill. We did tell them last year that please drop this Finance Bill. They did not listen to us, and it costed lives. 75 died last year, over 60 died this year, and bringing back this Finance Bill is like bringing back the storm that caused bloodshed. And as we celebrate this peacemaker, we want to reach out to the broad-based government to tell them not to provoke the wrath of the Gen Zs to come back to the streets, but also to do justice for the families who lost their dear ones. And that we will fight for even as we celebrate this award. Perhaps maybe I would invite Governor Waitito and one or two colleagues to also congratulate our leader, but to assure the country that even as we move forward, we will continue fighting for peace and for justice for our fellow Kenyans.